inward and backwards, the ankles deformed and thick, and the spinal column often bent forwards, or to one side. But the crown belongs to the philanthropic manufacturers of the Macclesfield Silk District. They employed the youngest children of all, even from 5 to 6 years of age. In the supplementary testimony of Commissioner Tufnell, I find the statement of a certain factory manager right, both of whose sisters were most shamefully crippled, and who had once counted the cripples in several streets, some of them the cleanest and neatest streets of Macclesfield. He found in Townley Street 10, George Street 5, Charlotte Street 4, Watercoats 15, Banktop 3, Lord Street 7, Mill Lane 12, Great George Street 2, in the Workhouse 2, Park Green 1, Peckford Street 2, whose families all unanimously declared that the cripples had become such in consequence of overwork in the silk twisting mills. One boy is mentioned so crippled as not to be able to go upstairs, and girls deformed in back and hips. Other deformities also have proceeded from this overwork, especially flattening of the foot, which Sir D. Barry 154A frequently observed, as did the physicians and surgeons in Leeds 154B in cases in which a stronger constitution, better food, and other more favourable circumstances enabled the young operative to resist this effect of a barbarous exploitation. We find, at least, pain in the back, hips, and legs, swollen joints, varicose veins, and large persistent ulcers in the thighs and calves. These affections are almost universal among the operatives. The reports of Stewart, Mackintosh, and Sir D. Barry contain hundreds of examples. Indeed, they know almost no operative who did not suffer from some of these affections, and in the remaining reports, the occurrence of the same phenomena is attested by many physicians. The reports covering Scotland place it beyond all doubt that a working day of 13 hours, even for men and women from 18 to 22 years of age, produces at least these consequences, both in the flax spinning mills of Dundee and Dunfermline, and in the cotton mills of Glasgow and Lanark. All these affections are easily explained by the nature of factory work, which is, as the manufacturers say, very light, and precisely by reason of its lightness, more enervating than any other. The operatives have little to do, but must stand the whole time. Anyone who sits down, say upon a window ledge or a basket, is fined, and this perpetual upright position, this constant mechanical pressure of the upper portions of the body upon spinal column, hips, and legs, inevitably produces the results mentioned. This standing is not required by the work itself, and at Nottingham chairs have been introduced, with the result that these affections disappeared, and the operatives ceased to object to the length of the working day. But in a factory where the operative works solely for the bourgeois, and has small interest in doing his work well, he would probably use the seats more than would be agreeable and profitable to the manufacturer, and in order that somewhat less raw material may be spoiled for the bourgeois, the operative must sacrifice health and strength. 155 This long protracted upright position, with a bad atmosphere prevalent in the mills, entails, besides the deformities mentioned, a marked relaxation of all vital energies, and, in consequence, all sorts of other affections general rather than local. The atmosphere of the factories is, as a rule, at once damp and warm, unusually warmer than is necessary, and, when the ventilation is not very good, impure, heavy, deficient in oxygen, filled with dust and the smell of the machine oil, which almost everywhere smears the floor, sinks into it, and becomes rancid. The operatives are lightly clad by reason of the warmth, and would readily take cold in case of irregularity of the temperature. A draught is distasteful to them. The general enervation which gradually takes possession of all the physical functions diminishes the animal warmth. This must be replaced from without, and nothing is therefore more agreeable to the operative than to have all the doors and windows closed, and to stay in his warm factory air. Then comes the sudden change of temperature on going out into the cold and wet or frosty atmosphere, without the means of protection from the rain, or of changing wet clothing for dry, a circumstance which perpetually produces colds. And when one reflects that, with all this, not one single muscle of the body is really exercised, really called into activity, except perhaps those of the legs, that nothing whatsoever counteracts the enervating, relaxing tendency of all these conditions, that every influence is wanting which might give the muscles strength, the fibers elasticity and consistency, that from youth up, the operative is deprived of all fresh air recreation. It is impossible to wonder at the almost unanimous testimony of the physicians in the factory's report, that they find a great lack of ability to resist disease, a general depression in vital activity, a constant relaxation of the mental and physical powers. Let us hear Sodi Barry first 156. The unfavorable influences of mill work upon the hands are the following: 1. The inevitable necessity of forcing their mental and bodily effort to keep pace with the machine, moved by a uniform and unceasing motive power. 2. Continuance in an upright position during unnaturally long and quickly recurring periods. 3. Loss of sleep in consequence of too long working hours. Pain in the legs, and general physical derangement. To these are often added low, crowded, dusty, or damp workrooms, impure air, a high temperature, and constant perspiration. Hence the boys especially very soon, and with but few exceptions, lose the rosy freshness of childhood, and become paler and thinner than other boys. Even the hand-weaver's bound boy, who sits before his loom with his bare feet resting upon the clay floor, retains a fresher appearance, because he occasionally goes into the fresh air for a time. But the mill child has not a moment free except for meals, and never goes into the fresh air, except on its way to them. All adult male spinners are pale and thin, suffer from capricious appetite and indigestion, and as they're all trained in the mills from their youth up, and there are very few tall, athletic men among them, the conclusion is justified, that their occupation is very unfavorable for the development of the male constitution. Females bear this work far better. Very naturally. But we shall see that they have their own diseases. So too, Power 157a. I can bear witness that the factory system in Bradford has engendered a multitude of cripples, and that the effect of long-continued labor upon the physique is apparent, not alone in actual deformity, but also, and much more generally, in stunted growth, relaxation of the muscles, and delicacy of the whole frame. So too, F. Sharp, in Leeds, the surgeon 157b already quoted. When I moved from Scarborough to Leeds, I was at once struck by the fact that the general appearance of the children was much paler, and their fibre less vigorous here than in Scarborough and its environs. I saw too, that many children were exceptionally small for their age. I have met with numberless cases of scrofula, lung trouble, mesenteric affections, and indigestion, concerning which I, as a medical man, have no doubt that they arose from mill work. I believe that the nervous energy of the body is weakened by the long hours, and the foundation of many diseases laid. If people from the country were not constantly coming in, the race of mill hands would soon be wholly degenerate. So too, Beaumont, surgeon in Bradford. To my thinking, the system, according to which work is done in the mills here, produces a peculiar relaxation of the whole organism, and thereby makes children in the highest degree susceptible to epidemic, as well as to incidental illness. I regard the absence of all appropriate regulations for ventilation and cleanliness in the mills very decidedly as the chief cause of that peculiar tendency or susceptibility to morbid affections which I have so frequently met in my practice. Similar testimony is borne by Dr. A. 1. I have had opportunity of observing the effects of the factory system upon the health of children under the most favourable circumstances in Wood's Mill, in Bradford, the best arranged of the district, in which he was factory surgeon. Till these effects are decidedly, and to a very great extent, injurious, even under these most favourable circumstances. 3. In the year 1842, 3/5 of all the children employed in Wood's Mill were treated by me, for the worst effect is not the predominance of deformities, but of enfeebled and morbid constitutions. 5. All this is greatly improved, since the working hours of children have been reduced at Wood's to 10. The Commissioner, Dr. Loudon himself, who cites these witnesses, says, "In conclusion, I think it has been clearly proved that children have been worked a most unreasonable and cruel length of time daily, and that even adults have been expected to do a certain quantity of labor which scarcely any human being is able to endure. The consequences, that many have died prematurely, and others are afflicted for life with defective constitutions, and the fear of a posterity enfeebled by the shattered constitution of the survivors is but too well founded, from a physiological point of view." And, finally, Dr. Hawkins, in speaking of Manchester, "I believe that most travellers are struck by the lowness of stature, the leanness and the paleness which present themselves so commonly to the eye at Manchester, and above all, among the factory classes. I have never been in any town in Great Britain, nor in Europe, in which degeneracy of form and colour from the national standard has been so obvious. Among the married women all the characteristic peculiarities of the English wife are conspicuously wanting. I must confess that all the boys and girls brought before me from the Manchester mills had a depressed appearance, and were very pale. In the expression